Welcome to the Futures Lab, where we help make you and your organization more innovative. I'm Ruben Stern. This week we hear from Adam Moss, the editor of New York Magazine. We see how researchers are working to make Twitter more useful for news organizations, and we'll see how a public television station in St. Louis is using Google Plus Hangouts to bring the audience into the live broadcast. New York Magazine has been a leader in embracing its online audience. We recently sat down with the editor of the magazine, Adam Moss. Thanks for joining us today. You're one of the more innovative magazine editors in the country. And I think a lot of people would say that, and I just wonder, how do you do that?
I mean, you do it. You do what you do out of necessity, and at the moment, you have to innovate. Otherwise, you're going to drown. We're very lucky because there's a lot of people around who are very smart and creative, and we hire people who are especially good at thinking in sort of original ways, and we just push ourselves all the time.
There are a lot of editors out there who would kill to have the kind of online success that New York Magazine is having. What advice would you give them?
The main advice I would give them is to publish for the internet. And that, still, weirdly, it's 2012, too many people are trying to enhance their print content for the web. That's fine, but it's not, the web has its own dynamics, the web has its own language.
And what is that? What are the dynamics or the language that are different?
It's a much greater sense of voice. It's speed. It's understanding at any given moment what the conversation is and trying to figure out a way to join it.
Earlier this year, Crain's New York and Ad Age both had articles that talked about your opportunistic approach to publishing, and I wonder if you could talk about what that is. What is your opportunistic approach?
Well, I mean, I think that we look at change not as something that is scary and an obstacle to overcome, but actually as an opportunity. We have a basic idea that if there's a way that people are now consuming media, we want to be there. And because people are, because that changes all the time, because people are, right now, huge numbers of our readers are migrating to reading our stuff on the phone. Well, okay, that's a completely different way of talking to them. They're going to be probably consuming it in even smaller pieces than they consume it through the web or other means. So that we have to find ways to both technologically meet them at their telephone, but also in content and journalism terms. What does it mean? What is the context of the reader at that point? What does the reader want?
Adam Moss, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
A team of researchers here at RJI are investigating how social media can help journalists engage with the public. 3 newspapers, the Seattle Times, the Jacksonville Times-Union, and the Dallas Morning News, put out Twitter hashtags and encouraged readers to exchange tweets with reporters during the televised presidential debates. RJI Research Director Esther Thorson helped lead the research.
He keeps trying to make you think that it's just some movie star.
We wanted to really see if we could enhance people's connections with the newspapers that were involved in the project, because we thought, well, if you're sort of watching the debates and you're tweeting to the hashtag that's specific to the newspapers, and you're hearing from the reporters what they think, and they're responding to you, and so on and so forth, it should help build a real strong bond between, or a stronger bond between yourself and the newspapers. It does look like it clearly improved people's watching experience. If you're watching TV and you're using that other device at the same time in a way that's coordinated with what's going on TV, tremendous increase in involvement. So that hypothesis really was strongly supported, and we're pretty excited about that. In Dallas, they were the champion tweeters. They had a very, very effective head reporter on politics, and he has a tremendous number of followers and a really great relationship with them. And I think the real key there is in Dallas, much more so than the other 2 newspapers, every reporter tweets. So it's not just the social media person that runs the social networking, it's everybody is involved. I think what we've learned is that there is a tremendous potential for social media to help news organizations experience life's events with their readers and viewers. And when they do, that bond builds up and it becomes very valuable. I think we're just, touching the surface of the incredible power of the social media to link news organizations better with their viewers.
It's possible now to go beyond live tweeting to actual live face-to-face conversations through new technologies like Spreecast, Nimble, or Google Plus Hangouts. KETC, a public television station in St. Louis, is one of the latest to experiment with using these new technologies to bring viewers at home directly into the on-air broadcast. The idea was first pioneered by KOMU-TV in Columbia, Missouri. KOMU's program, called UNews, put Google Plus Hangouts directly on air and expanded the station's reach from a small Midwestern market to one that spanned the globe.
Stand by, Sarah. Stand by, Sarah. Here we go. Stand by. Stand by. Here we go. Here we go.
UNews was a success from the news perspective and from the ability. How else would you bring in, 2 million followers, pioneer a whole new audience, okay? But there's no way to monetize it. So when the program was pulled, that was the way that it was spun, that it didn't gain traction. So how do you, it gained traction. It just didn't gain traction in the specific area that they were able to serve ads to. It was a crash and burn from the sales perspective because they weren't able to monetize those individual eyeballs outside of mid-Missouri.
KOMU has scaled back its use of the Google Plus Hangout to a short segment in its traditional noon news. But in St. Louis, KETC, as a public TV station, operates without the constraints of having to monetize specific shows. The Reynolds Journalism Institute is helping KETC develop a weekly public affairs program called Stay Tuned. The show uses the full range of technologies, from television to Twitter, Google Plus, and other social media, to create an electronic town square that brings citizens, public officials, and journalists together to discuss the big issues in the community.
Rella, I'll start with you. We have on the big screen.
Take an issue like accreditation. That's one that we did, school accreditation. And that's an issue that you're hearing about on the news all the time, but it's like a 30-second story that you're hearing about consistently and seeing articles and you don't completely understand it, but we can devote an hour really sort of digging deep, and we can hear from the parents with kids in the school, and we can hear from the superintendent, we can hear the journalist who's written 10 stories all in one place about it. So it's really sort of intended to be a new way of thinking on public affairs programming.
For the Reynolds Journalism Institute, what we want to do is add to that program a very intense social media component, where before the program, during the program, and after the program, we would be going to various constituencies on Facebook and Twitter and regular email and all, and trying to get their opinions and ideas. And that if we can make the social media intense enough and get enough response from the community, we will make the public forum bigger and more diverse.
We really are trying to get a lot of voices in the show. I hope that what this does is kind of give people who care about this region and are maybe feel like they don't have a voice, or they just for whatever reason aren't interested in participating in other venues. I'm hoping that this somehow gets a little credibility to where those folks will want to participate.
That's really why I'm here.
Good. I tell you what, the audience would love.
As news organizations around the world continue to experiment with the new technology, a couple of pieces of advice are mentioned time and again. First, everyone involved agrees that news organizations need to embrace this new technology. Take it slow and learn how to make it work for the audience. And be sure everyone's on board. This new technology forces innovation and change on everyone, from the IT department to sales. That's it for this week's report from the RJI Futures Lab. See you in the future.